Whenever I think of amusement parks, a few things come to mind first. Roller coasters, costume characters, fried food, and of course how expensive it all tends to be. For most of my life, visiting an amusement park was a once-a-year treat, sometimes less, but I do love the experience, so in 2023 I decided to try and make going to the theme park as cost-effective as possible for myself. Admission to a theme park is usually sold in the form of tickets that let you enter the park and experience its attractions for a single day. If you've ever been to one or any other landmass of fun, you've probably also been offered something called a season pass. A season pass is an alternative pricing model where you pay a large lump sum of money up front, but then you get to visit the park or whatever it is as many days as you want for the entire operating season. I have had a tendency to hand wave away the temptation of getting a season pass just by doing the simple math. Usually I would see season passes that cost between 3 and 4 times the amount of a normal ticket, which means that you would have to go to the park like 5 times in order for it to pay for itself. Or to put it another way, you would save money buying the season pass instead of paying for separate tickets. And the opportunity to visit a place that much in a single season seems absurd for me most of the time. But at the start of 2023, I decided to live a little. I made a plan to get a season pass to Kings Island in Mason, Ohio, and try to milk as much value as I possibly could out of a single season pass, with the goal of getting the magic number of money spent per visit down as low as I could get it. I should clarify that this endeavor was not a true save money at all costs thing, as funny as that phrase is as an oxymoron. Another goal of mine was to experience just about everything the park had to offer, so I did spend some money I didn't really need to. And someone could pretty easily attempt a similar thing and try only to save money without any other goals and definitely do it better than I did. But I figured since this is a once-in-a-lifetime undertaking, for me, I would let myself have some fun and enjoy a few extra things here and there. To begin, I got a gold pass and an all-season dining pass for a combined total of $296.50. These passes let me go to the park as much as I want during the calendar year and also get a meal once every 4 hours. Drink passes were a separate thing, but coincidentally, I also didn't drink any soda in the year 2023, so it seemed silly to buy a drink pass for something I wouldn't even drink. But just so it's known, I am a soda enjoyer. If this happened to have been any other year, I probably would have gotten that drink pass, but instead what I did was I bought a clear branded water bottle for like $3, because the park rules say that you are allowed to bring in an unopened clear bottle of water, and these things pass pretty well as unopened at a glance if they're full. And there are plenty of water fountains around the park if I need a refill. Last couple things I bought to prepare for this project were some sunblock for $10.74. Where is the sunblock? And a monopod for filming, which cost $5.36. I did not end up using the monopod at all for the entirety of the visit because the one time I tried to pull it out and film something, I felt too awkward to continue. Like, I guess we're just like outside the era of the selfie stick now. Like, just something about like, you know, setting my phone up on the little thing and like trying to do one of these and like film of light. I didn't like it. It didn't feel good. I missed opening weekend because of family obligations, but I spent my first visit a week later just walking around, filming B-roll, and getting a sense of the park's layout. I'd been to Kings Island a few times as a kid, but most of my friends ended up preferring to drive north to Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio, which has more roller coasters and generally bigger ones too. Because of this, we'd mostly go there instead of Kings Island over the years. Both parks are owned by Cedar Fair, and the residents of Central Ohio, where I live, are uniquely positioned to have which is better arguments about the parks since the travel cost is about the same for each. This first visit in 2023 to Kings Island was nostalgic to be sure, but walking around and taking in the layout was mostly just to ensure I wouldn't get lost during future visits. The first visit was pretty much research focused and the park was packed with people, so I didn't ride any rides, but I did go up to the Eiffel Tower to get some aerial views.
Eiffel Tower.
Ride to the top for a bird's eye view of the park and surrounding countryside on this 1/3 scale replica of the Eiffel Tower in Paris, France.
Every good theme park needs an absurdly tall waypoint to orient yourself around. The Disney World parks all have their one per park, like Cinderella's Castle and the Epcot Ball, but Kings Island has 3. The most visually striking of which is their 1/3 scale replica of the Eiffel Tower. You take an elevator to the top and look out over the whole park, and that's all. Attraction complete. I wouldn't say I have a fear of heights, but this observation tower makes me just nervous enough that I don't imagine I would have a great time visiting the real one in Paris. The tower has this metal grating around the entire observation point from floor to ceiling. Great for safety, bad for footage, but if I hadn't gone up the tower, then this visit would have effectively been a $300 walk. Well, that and I picked up some Skyline chili, conies, and fries thanks to my meal pass. They're not nearly as good as in the restaurant. They don't even steam the buns. I also congratulated myself on a job well done with some blue ice cream for $5.08. Blue ice cream is one of those things that Kings Island is known for. It's some kind of berry flavor, probably blue raspberry, but I can't really tell. And I think it's especially good when swirled with vanilla. Near the end, it started raining pretty hard in the park, so I bought a rain poncho from a gift shop for $7.69. It's worth knowing that my season pass gave me a 10% discount on all in-park purchases, so anytime I mention buying something from Kings Island, I am saving a little bit over the base cost. The poncho seemed like a smart investment since it was likely to rain again in the future, and they're much easier to pack away and conceal than an umbrella. I did not end up using the poncho to protect myself from the rain ever again during the entire project. With the research and preparation phases now fully complete, it was time to start having fun. I'm here in historic my own car for day 2 of Kings Island. Today I'm going to be exploring Coney Mall and all the attractions that are in that area. I put on sunblock today and I put it on my eyelids, and my eyelids have been like sticking together for the entire drive, which is very unpleasant. It has kind of fucked up my makeup, so I'll probably be wearing sunglasses most of the day. But it's cool. It's gonna be a good day. Since it is the first day of actually like doing attractions, I'm still very excited. There is no amount of fatigue or dread that has set in yet, which is great. I went on a Friday, which unsurprisingly was a marked improvement over visiting on the actual weekend in terms of crowds. I wouldn't call myself enoclophobic, but if given the chance, I will always choose to visit a place with smaller crowds and shorter lines. The first weeks of operation didn't really give me the opportunity to go during the week, so Fridays tended to be the best option. And for a brief window of time in May, Friday meant kids were in school, so the atmosphere was a lot less chaotic.
Backlot Stunt Coaster.
Have you ever watched an absolutely insane chase scene in a movie and thought, hey, I could totally be a stunt car driver like that? At Kings Island, we've got your chance of a lifetime. Our Backlot Stunt Coaster ride is a state-of-the-art linear induction motor launch coaster that delivers a no-holds-barred, high-speed experience like none you've ever experienced before.
Backlot Stunt Coaster was the first roller coaster that I rode when I was a child, so it felt appropriate to do that first here today. There's a reason it was the first one. You know, it's very mild. It's not like a huge thrill ride. I remember when I was little and we went here for the first time, waiting an excruciatingly long time to ride because it was brand new at the time. It had like just opened. And I think if I had gone through that wait, which was probably like between 1 and 2 hours, I would say, I would not have found that worthwhile at all. But, you know, I only waited like 10 minutes to get on this one, and that was great. There's a reason that it is so near and dear to my heart, and it was cool to be reminded of that today. So after I had gone to Kings Island a handful of times, I ran out of new rides to see, so I went back on a few specifically to get in the front seat. For the sake of pacing, some of these bits where I talk about a ride will be supplemented by future Ellie discussing how the experience changes after a second ride from the front. So riding the front seat of the coasters isn't always a straightforward, better experience. On Backlot Stunt Coaster, I feel like weirdly some of the intensity is lost, and that might be because this was the second time I was on it.
Kings Mills Antique Autos.
In the Kings Mills Antique Autos family ride, guests board replica classic touring cars and take a leisurely drive around a scenic track equipped with a small rail to keep the car on the path. The ride is comparable to the original Les Taxis antique car ride, combining nostalgia with new enhancements. Les Taxis was a near-identical ride that opened with the park in 1972, on the land currently occupied by the Backlot Stunt Coaster. And it's honestly kind of scary.
Kings Mills Antique Autos is an interesting one when you're like a kid and you've never driven before, which was my experience at the sort of like Cedar Point equivalent of this. It's kind of one of those situations where when you've like been driving for a while and you've been like driving a real car, this ride experience is nothing, and in fact, it makes it a little more stressful, because even though it's on a rail and you're not going to hit anything, you still kind of feel like you are, and you're like taking in all of your surroundings and like checking all of your sides, even though there's like practically no risk. I recommend it if you don't drive. If you already do, you can skip this one.
Windseeker.
Who said swings are for kids? Strap in for some big kid fun, because this ride was designed with thrill seekers in mind. It's part nostalgia, part traditional swing, and all flying high.
I must not have filmed a reaction to Windseeker, but remember how I mentioned Kings Island having 3 big towers you can use to orient yourself? One is Windseeker, which is pretty cool and relaxing. I actually like riding Windseeker more than being on the Eiffel Tower. I guess the safety of a well-secured seat eases the anxiety of being so high up, but maybe that's just me.
The Racer.
On this classic out-and-back wooden roller coaster, riders on the Blue Racer versus Red Racer race side by side along twin tracks to determine the winner. The Racer, really it's Twin Racers, has been the focal point of the Coney Mall sector of the park since Kings Island opened in 1972, and with good reason. The Racer is credited with reigniting the wooden roller coaster building boom in the 1970s, thus beginning the second golden age of the roller coaster.
See, the Racer is an interesting one because it's a wooden coaster where there's a red car and a blue car, and they take off at the same time, and they go up the hill simultaneously, and then they take 2 diverging paths that are symmetrical. I rode the blue one because I just prefer cool colors, and I'm told the red one always wins, and I don't know if that's just part of the lore, or if it has to do with like the amount of weight that's on it or something like that. But it's a fun ride. It's just sort of like a little rickety because it's an older wooden coaster, but it's fun. And with the Racers, I feel like, you know, sitting in the front is the slightly better experience, much in the same way that the Blue Racer is the slightly better experience, just because the blue one always wins.
Dodge 'em.
Bumper-to-bumper traffic never been this fun. Or bumpy. Prepare to outrun your favorite frenemy and take the chance on getting spun out. Or swerve, whip, bump, and crash cars with anyone and everyone to your heart's wild desire. But make sure to watch out for that guy behind you. He's got a wild look in his eye.
I did dodge him. I dodged him. Nobody can say that I didn't dodge them because I did in fact dodge them. So dodge them is like just bumper cars. But the thing that sets that apart from like the Kings Mills antique autos or whatever is that even if you are well versed in driving, it's still fun like to have a group of people, even if like nobody knows each other, all like trying to drive in a circle and trying to not cause a huge like pile up, while the kids are doing the exact opposite thing and they're trying to like crash as many cars as possible. It's a very fun little dynamic and still worth doing as an adult.
Shake, rattle, and roll.
You'll feel like you're flying as you whirl, twirl, and spin on this twisting, rotating family favorite. Shake, Rattle, and Roll is a ride that you'll want to experience both during the day and at night, as it literally offers 2 different experiences with an LED lighting package.
I realized something while I was on Shake, Rattle, and Roll, and that's that even when I'm by myself, I have this compulsion to just like laugh on rides and roller coasters and sometimes yell out little like whoops and things. And I fully anticipated that I was going to ride all of these rides, like, not stone-faced, but, like, you know, not making a whole lot of sound or anything, because I don't usually just, like, react to things when I'm by myself. But I don't know, I think it's just, like, being surrounded by other people, even if they're not people that you know, just, like, knowing that they're, like, nearby. I don't know. When the ride is moving, when it's, like, going on hills, when there's a lot of, like, leaps and stuff happening, I laugh. I don't know why. I even got a Skyline Chili 3-way thanks to my meal pass, which are just as good as in the restaurant.
Scrambler.
Have you ever made scrambled eggs? If so, you'll know that the success depends on stirring the eggs this way and that for the entire time you're cooking. Now imagine you're the eggs. That's what it's like on the Scrambler.
You know, whenever I think about the trope of people, like, getting sick to the point of throwing up on an amusement ride, I think of Scrambler. I think of rides like that are, like, mostly on the floor, but just have a lot of, like, spinning and a lot of just, like, you know, motion happening. And I ate Skyline right before this one. And I love Skyline, but I will fully admit Skyline is prime make you throw up if anything happens to you food. So I'm surprised that I don't feel even a little bit nauseous. I feel like I'm kind of missing out on an important experience by not throwing up on an amusement ride. So maybe that'll be one of my goals for this project.
Zephyr.
In ancient Greek mythology, Zephyrus was the west wind, delivering delicate breezes to signal the beginning of spring. Our classic Zephyr ride delivers the same mellow, yet incredibly exhilarating experience, as you and your friends and family glide through the air in swings suspended 30 feet above the ground.
Zephyr.
It's basically like a more mild version of Windseeker. It's faster, but it's a lot shorter. I will say, that's the first thing I've ridden today that's made me any degree of dizzy. But it's very fun. It's just as relaxing as Windseeker, but it's just like lower to the ground.
Monster.
Throughout the ages, legends have been told of dark, dastardly creatures roaming the depths of the underworld, sporting countless gripping tentacles and harboring even more evil intentions. But they've never made it to land. Until now.
I imagine the monster must be a pain in the ass to operate. So it has like 6 sort of like tentacles, and each one holds 8 cars. But only 2 of them are ever low enough to the ground to let passengers in and out. So it has to stop like 3 times every time it runs. And the amount of time it takes to load and unload those 8 passengers is about the amount of time it takes for the ride to do its entire thing. And, you know, I'm sure if they had more staff, they could load more of the cars. I mean, as it is right now, half of them just have nobody in them. I think that's the first, like, of the, like, mini rides that's just, like, not been worth the wait. Because most of them I've had, you know, I've been able to get on either immediately or after it's done 1 cycle. This time I had to wait for it to do 2 cycles, but it felt like waiting for, like, 6. I need you to understand what I mean when I tell you this was one of the best theme park visits I had ever experienced in my life. Up until this point, every single time I had been to a theme park to have fun was with friends or with family, which are cherished memories to be sure, but if you've ever done something like that, you know it's never really a smooth vacation. One of the perks of going to Kings Island by yourself is you kind of just get to do whatever you want. There's no time spent deliberating with your group about what to do next. And there's no conflict about like, well, I don't want to do this, or I want to do this, or I'm hungry, or, you know, whatever. Genuinely, the only downside is when they make a stranger sit next to you on a ride. But that didn't really happen much at all, plus I'm an extrovert, so I didn't really mind personally. And, you know, also being here on a Friday as opposed to a Saturday or a Sunday is really nice because the lines are really short. I've successfully avoided a lot of crowding. And, you know, like I set out to do exactly 9 attractions today. And I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it because on a regular planned out trip to Kings Island with, you know, a group of friends or whatever, doing like 7 or 8 things is like, you know, you're lucky if you get that much done. So I'm really glad I was able to cross so many things off of my list in one day with an hour to spare. Like I was going to stay here another hour, but I've already done everything I want to do and I kind of just want to go home. So I consider that a win. Visit 2 was some of the most fun I've had in my life. Visit 3 was some of the least fun I've had in my life. It rained in Mason early in the morning before the park opened, so right out of the gate, or in the gate, I guess, a lot of rides were closed. There's already started to be like some rain outside. The rain really is supposed to only last for like the morning, and then in the afternoon there's supposed to be like scattered thunderstorms, which may or may not hit here exactly. The wooden coasters in particular were down for an extended period. I was really hoping to cover rides in a specific area of the park called Area 72. Fun fact, Area 72 is themed after the conspiracy theory-driven folklore of Area 51, but its name is in reference to the year 1972 when the park opened. But I was required to put my stuff in a locker in order to ride anything over there. Paying for a locker was on my list of absolute no-no expenses. Make no mistake, the upcharges for just about everything in a theme park are a bit of a scam, and I do recognize this, but paid lockers are one of the most egregious. A flat-out refusal to have storage bins for some, but not all rides, in favor of nickel and diming already paying visitors into spending more money? Villain shit. And at this point, I was coming to the park with a backpack on, so I just decided to either carry my stuff differently in the future, or plan a visit where I buy a locker exactly once, and then ride all the rides that require it in a single trip. School must have just let out because there were a lot of kids at the park. That window of peace that I mentioned was shorter than I thought. There were a number of middle school bands and choirs performing on stage near the entrance, which didn't really help the ambience at all. I probably sound like a grouchy old lady insisting that the kids stay out of the park that's literally built for young people, but like, who benefits from having a concert in the theme park instead of like at school? The parents have to spend more money to see the show. Anyone who doesn't have a kid present has to put up with the grating performance of little untrained musicians, half of whom are probably only doing it because their parents insisted. And the kids are just biding their time before getting to do the fun things that they're actually there to do. It's lose-lose for everyone, except for Kings Island's bottom line. Just have concerts like normal. To be fair, I was already pretty grumpy that day, so maybe if I was having a good day, it wouldn't have been such an issue. But the added crowding meant long lines, and I could only do 2 attractions in the 3 hours I was there.
Grand Carousel.
Enjoy the charm of riding a genuine antique wooden horse on this classic and timeless ride. Kings Island's magnificent carousel was manufactured by the Philadelphia Toboggan Company, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in 1926, and is the oldest ride in the park.
See, the thing about the Grand Carousel is that it's exactly what it says on the tin, and it's a kind of ride that's been around forever for a reason. It is very smartly placed because it's on this path where it kind of diverges from the entrance to the park to basically everywhere else. So if you're like already on your way to do something, or you're like making a beeline toward your favorite coaster before the line gets too crazy, it's very tempting to make a quick little stop at the Grand Carousel because it's there and because I assume the lines are usually not too crazy.
Boo Blasters on Boo Hill.
Kings Island needs your help. Our beautiful Boo Hill Castle has been overtaken by the wicked Boocifer. And now, it's a haunted haven for the underworld, filled with ghastly ghosts, ghouls, and goblins of all evil kinds. We need you to capture Boocifer, so that Boo Hill can be restored to its rightful place in society.
Boo Blasters is a dark ride where you have a little blaster gun and you shoot these glow-in-the-dark and blacklight ghost targets for a high score. It's been revised a number of times, notably as the Phantom Theater in the 90s, and later as a Scooby-Doo themed ride. In its Scooby-Doo era, it was the very first ride I ever rode in the park as a kid. I really do miss the, like, Scooby-Doo theming of Boo Blasters on Boo Hill, but also I don't really think a whole lot is lost. It's gonna be full of your generic sort of like spooky ghost kind of characters anyway. And during visit 3, I scored a whopping 1469. Every future visit I scored a round number, so I don't know why the display said 1469 the one time. Maybe I'm just like imagining things. Maybe I just like wanted there to be a funny number there so bad that I just like hallucinated it saying 1469 instead of like 1400. Or maybe the display was broken. Or maybe I did actually score 1469. You know, it's kind of poetic in a way that the visit last week to Kings Island that I thought was like basically the best visit I've ever had to a theme park is so quickly followed by probably the worst visit to a theme park that I've had anyway. I would like to think that when I next come here, it will be like on a Wednesday or a Thursday. You know, I did like 2 rides today. I waited like 45 minutes just to eat food. And I kind of figured going into this that like some of the visits would be not as great and that, you know, there would be some stinkers. And so this one was really bad, and so I'm actually leaving like 2 hours earlier than I had planned to. Like, I've spent like 3 hours here and I've just been like, this blows. I'd rather play Tears of the Kingdom, which, by the way, as of recording, just came out today. So like, why wouldn't I? Thankfully, it didn't take long to get over the lows of Visit 3 and begin Visit 4 with a renewed vim. B let me borrow a belt bag to better bear my basic belongings and bargain for my budgetary boundaries. This was helpful, but the belt bag is pretty inconvenient to squeeze under a seat restraint. My phone, keys, mask, and cards fit effortlessly into pants pockets, so for future visits I just wore jeans instead, foregoing only the water bottle. Again, there are numerous drinking fountains in the park, so getting dehydrated, not an issue. I don't remember which day this happened, it might have been this visit, but at some point I had lost the original water bottle and had to get a new one, so that's another $2.
Orion.
Thrill seekers meet their match when they visit Kings Island to ride Orion, one of only 7 giga coasters in the world. Scientists are in a race against time to develop technology capable of weaving transport vehicles through a coming meteor storm and traveling to a new planet within the Orion constellation. For the program to be successful, it needs volunteers to help with testing.
It has been a very long time since I've been like impressed by an amusement ride, but like Orion's really good. It does a lot of really fun like dips and flips and things. It's a very short coaster, it's over very quickly, but like that was absolutely worth the wait. I would 100% do that again. So I think Orion might actually be my favorite like roller coaster at Kings Island. I just had the distinct privilege of riding it 4 times in the last hour. I probably could squeeze a 5th in because it's not quite 11 a.m. yet. There was sort of a progression that happened because the first couple times I just rode whatever seat they gave me. The 3rd time I decided to put my hands in the air, which is something I just like don't do on roller coasters. It makes me really anxious, but I did this time. I don't think that like enhances the experience at all, but like I get why people do it. And then the 4th time I sat in the front, the very front seat, which I just pretty much never do on roller coasters. In fact, usually I kind of insist because that's like the most anxiety inducing. The hill is like worse, but oh man, it's worth it. The payoff for doing that is well worthwhile. So like, if you have the opportunity to get on a roller coaster, especially like a really intense one, and you only have to wait like a couple extra minutes to go in the front, that's the racer. I recommend it.
Banshee.
Thrill seekers have something to scream about when they experience the world's longest steel-inverted roller coaster. With 7 stomach-churning inversions, the 4,124-foot-long coaster ties another steel-inverted roller coaster record. Kings Island won't shout at its competitors, but they're referring to Mon 2, a coaster in Busch Gardens, Tampa Bay, which also has 7 inversions.
Yippee! It's pretty easy to forget that like some roller coasters kind of make you a little woozy after you get off of them. Banshee did that. Banshee is one of those ones that like whips you around a lot. Like there's a segment where the train flips upside down, but it doesn't feel like it's just, you know, a natural result of the speed and going along the track. It feels very like forced into that speed. And I don't know if that's like a bad thing necessarily, but you do feel it. You do feel it afterward.
The Bat.
In the shadows of falling darkness, wings of the night creature await their silent signal from the moon. Flying madly through a starless sky, the frenzied flight of the bat takes you by surprise and leaves you breathless, hanging in midair, captured alive.
I have a lot of nostalgia for the Bat because I have ridden it through 2 name changes. I rode it when it was Top Gun, I rode it when it was Flight Deck, and now a 3rd time as the Bat. And it is, you know, one that's like hard to recommend because there isn't a whole lot that like goes on, but if you're like new to roller coasters, it's a great pick. Despite the lines for the Bat being some of the shortest on average, I seem to have a harder time getting into the very front seat at any point. I don't actually remember if I even got to. I don't know, it's probably better.
Delirium.
It's an experience, not for the faint of heart, but one thrill seekers simply cannot get enough of during a visit to Kings Island. This is an attraction that you will want to ride more than once, as the experience varies between day and night. The experience never gets old on Delirium. It's always as much fun as the first time you rode it.
I think Delirium as a title might be a little bit exaggerated because it's actually kind of relaxing to be on. You know, you just get some good wind. You actually get a pretty decent view of the Adventureport section of the park, which as of recording is not open yet. So I thought that was a cool little like sneak behind the scenes that you can really only get by riding Delirium.
Diamondback.
Diamondback has ranked among the top steel roller coasters in the world in annual industry and enthusiast polls since its opening in 2009. The trains on Diamondback feature open-air, stadium-style seating, which offers riders an unobstructed view no matter where they may be seated on the train.
Diamondback is what I would call high thrill, low risk, because it's a very fast coaster. It's got a lot of hills, but it doesn't have any like loops or anything. It doesn't take you like too far sideways. I wish I had more to say about it, honestly. It's kind of uninteresting, but you know, like it's a good coaster. It's a fun coaster. It just is what it is. It's like snake themed. I didn't have much to say about Diamondback from the front. However, there's a big water jet that sprays out of the rear of the train near the ride's end, so I figured I'd ride it from the very back row. Diamondback, you don't actually get wet in the back seat. It was really interesting doing the ride with like a bunch of people in the front and just like nobody else in line. I could have taken any seat I wanted and then just having like just me in the back. I'm sure the people coming on, because there was like a big group of people that came on right after we finished boarding that were probably very confused and wondering why in the world I would choose that.
Mystic Timbers.
Themed to an abandoned lumber company, riders experience 16 airtime moments as they weave along 3,265 feet of track, through wooded terrain, over water, and through a mid-course tunnel at speeds up to 53 miles per hour. The coaster is naturally exciting because of its setting in a densely wooded area. The natural rugged terrain and tunnel ensures a unique and memorable ride experience.
So there's a thing about Mystic Timbers that I find more interesting than the ride itself, and that's the queue, because the theming is really kind of unclear. Like, Orion had this whole thing where like, oh, they're testing out the new passenger cars for these people who are going to be doing like space flight. And so you have like a little video clip, you have things like that sort of like match the theming. With Mystic Timbers, it's kind of like the theme is just wood. The music that they play in the queue is just this like really weird atmospheric stuff because, you know, they want it to feel like mystical. Whereas in Orion, they were playing like Elton John. It's not even like Rocket Man. It's like your song, and I'm like, why? Why this? But honestly, I will take that over the like boring-ass music that played in Mystic Timbers. Mystic Timbers, still mid from the front. Day 4 is about on par with Day 2, and I honestly think I would count them as being fairly equal if it weren't for the heat, but the heat is just going to continue to be a problem until we hit the fall, so I just have to deal with that. But yeah, I stayed here for about 4 hours again. This time I wasn't keeping count of the number of attractions that I did, but I did knock out a lot of like big coasters, a lot of the like big name attractions, and I would say today is a big success. Today, for visit number 5, I am here on Monday, May 22nd. For visit 5, I brought a hat, which matches the belt bag. I do not recommend this. Genuinely, it was so difficult to cram under a shirt or into the seat. Like, unless you are prone to heat stroke or something, don't wear a hat. Don't wear a hat to the theme park. It's a bad idea. I believe this is going to be the lowest traffic day of the park of the year. At least I hope it is. It seems to make sense because Memorial Day is next Monday. This is the first Monday that they're open, and it's still May. So after this, it's officially summertime, like everywhere. So, you know, I'm hoping for the best. I'm hoping that I'm gonna like try to knock out as many things as I possibly can. I might even stay later, who knows?
Flight of Fear.
Get ready for an adrenaline rush unlike no other when you catapult from 0 to 54 miles per hour in just 4 seconds on this heart-pounding adventure in total darkness through 4 inversions.
Flight of Fear was built in the 90s, and sometimes I kind of wonder why rides that are like that old still get as much traffic as they do, and I'm really glad that I have been like reminded of why Flight of Fear is one that like gets a lot of people in line and is still like really popular after all this time. One of my favorite things that they do that I'm glad they still do, because I remember they did this when I rode it as a teenager. It has a really fast like first push. It goes from 0 to like 50 or something really quickly. Like you just go for it. And they have the ride operator say goodbye right before that happens, and that I'm glad they still do that, because that is like, I don't know, it's important to me. Flight of Fear becomes like a lot more comprehensible when you're in the front seat, like you just, because you have a better view of like what's going on. Some of that scare factor is gone. Here's a funny thing. Kings Island sells these miniature replicas of the coasters that you can assemble and display at home. They're made to show the entire length of track, and they're pretty standard stuff for an enthusiast. There's an approximate shape that you expect a roller coaster to be, and indeed replicas for rides like Orion and Diamondback fit this idea well. The same cannot be said for Flight of Fear, whose replica shows how the ride is effectively like a long line and then like a cluster of squiggles.
Drop Tower.
Drop Tower has been closed every time I've gone here, and I'm starting to fear the worst. I'm starting to fear that I won't be able to ride it, or that by the time I do, it'll be like so in demand from being closed for so long that the lines are going to be insane.
The Beast.
There are 7 natural wonders of the world. If there was a list of the top man-made wonders of the world, the Beast would be on it. It is still listed in the prestigious Guinness Book of World Records as the longest wooden roller coaster in the world at 7,361 feet.
Finally, on visit 5, I managed to ride the Beast. I'm glad I did that one again, because I genuinely have no memory of it from when I was little, but I'm like pretty sure I rode it. And you know, wooden coasters, they're not gonna last forever. I'm glad that like that one is still safely operating, and I don't know how much longer it's gonna last, is the thing. And I'm sure there's gonna be like a lot of people who are gonna really miss it once they do inevitably tear it down, because it is showing its age in a major way. And there was no line. The thing was just, it was straight up just lying to me. It was like, hey, you gotta wait like 45 minutes to get on the Beast, and I waited practically not at all. I guess I'll mention here, the Kings Island mobile app is phenomenally useless. The ride times are always inaccurate, and it loads really slowly, even if your other apps are closed and your signal is good. The only thing it's kinda good for is showing you exactly where you are on a digital park map if you get lost, but you'd be better off just taking screenshots of your QR codes and using the towers to guide you.
In Vertigo.
Witness the terror flash in the eyes of fellow riders as you experience the only face-to-face inverted coaster in the Midwest. Scream your face off as you soar at speeds, reaching 55 miles per hour through 3 inversions forward and then backward.
So Invertigo was like the last big ride that I had to do. I wouldn't say it's the most thrilling of the rides, but for some reason it was the one that gave me the most anxiety coming up to it. But it's very good. It's a very like small coaster in terms of its track length, and it makes really efficient use of that by having you basically go up and down the entire length each way. It's also not a ride for introverts because in all likelihood, if you get on it, unless you are in the very, very first or the very, very last seat, you will be facing somebody the entire time. It is Monday, June 11th, 12th, something like that. It is very overcast. The highs are supposed to be in the 60s today. Sun's not supposed to come out until about the time I intend to leave. And a new section of the park has opened up. The Adventure Port is now operational. Adventure Port is an area of the park which finished construction in 2023 and is comprised of a bar, 2 new rides, and Adventure Express, which was there before, but I guess now is new and improved.
Adventure Express.
Experience an exciting excursion with Adventure Express, a tour company run by Aero Cargo Company. See the bustling port town that offers stunning views of Soulspin ruins and other landmarks around the port.
I rode the new and improved Adventure Express, which honestly I am having a hard time fathoming what's new or improved about it, but also I hadn't ridden that ride in over a decade, so I guess it makes sense that I don't remember it that well. The framing for the whole ride is that like you're supposed to be going on track 1, which is like a scenic route through other parts of the park, and track 2 is closed off, and that's where like the Forbidden Temple is and all that. So they build it up in this kind of way where you get on the ride and they're like, oh no, you're on track 2. That's not the right one. Right outside the ride, there's a level 5 aggressive thrill ride rating, which honestly it hasn't earned. The ride doesn't do enough to justify that. Is the implication supposed to be, oh yeah, that scenic route is an aggressive level 5 thrill ride? I don't know. It's silly. It's funny to me.
Soul Spin.
This recently discovered mechanism appears to be an immense sun disk created by an ancient civilization. Climb aboard these open-air suspended passenger vehicles to experience the thrill of flying 60 feet through the air at 25
Soul Spin is another one of those rides that I would say is a little more relaxing than it is thrilling. As I got to the front, they were like, are there any single riders? And I was like, sure, I'm a single rider. And then I walked around and there weren't actually any seats, so I had to walk back up to the front and be like, hey, I think y'all miscounted. So I had to sit it out, which gave me a really great view of the ride that you're seeing in a shot right now. But as soon as that group was done, somebody's seat didn't like come up properly, so they had to like get a special sort of like key to unlock it so that the seat restraint would pop up. And then they closed off that seat so nobody could ride in that seat for the next time. And appropriately, as I got on the ride is when the sun came out. I know, it's another ride that has like a deceivingly low service rate because it takes so long to load people on and off of it. And I don't know if that's just like the growing pains of it being a brand new ride, but like Delirium is right there. You might as well do Delirium instead.
Cargo Loco.
Need a company to ship your goods? Look no further than the Aero Cargo Company. Their methods might be a little dizzying, but they'll get your freight from point A to point B. Eventually.
Cargo Loco is the other new ride. I really enjoy this idea that, you know how like for the racer, they have like basically sort of artificial teams where they're like, oh yeah, the red one is the better one, or like the blue train is the better one. I love the idea of a similar kind of thing popping up arbitrarily for Cargo Loco, where they're like, oh no, yeah, the limes barrel is the best one, or the kerosene barrel, or the tequila barrel. I'm team coffee beans, personally. I had coffee beans all to myself during that ride. After I saw all there was to see in Adventureport, I took a ride on Viking Fury.
Viking Fury.
Set sail on this medieval Viking ship for an exciting adventure as you fly to an incredible 80-feet arc high above the waters below. You'll experience weightlessness and rapidly changing forces and directions aboard this ship.
I don't know what it was. I feel like I just had a spiritual experience on Viking Fury. And what I mean by that is, it felt like I had walked in on a community of people who all just like had this understanding about Viking Fury and what it is and what it means to them, and somehow by being there I absorbed that energy. It's like everyone who was in the know like put their hands up in the air to demonstrate you don't need to hold on to anything at all. When the ride was like starting to slow down, there was this one guy who just shouted out, Viking Fury, you've done it again. I get the feeling that's not the only time I'm going to ride Viking Fury. I get the feeling I'm a changed person. Like, my life was previously devoid of Viking Fury, and that was a mistake. That is a regret that I have in my lifetime. And that going forward, I will make sure that there is more Viking Fury in not only my day-to-day, but in my personality. On this same visit, I saw 2 of the live shows offered in the park, Off the Rails and the 70s On Demand.
Off the Rails.
Ellie didn't grab any promotional text for this one, so come and see a bunch of people on bicycles and scooters flip around while some singers and dancers perform covers of outdated pop music.
Off the Rails made me miss show choir. It's fun, it's silly, it's got like a lot of different things going on. I found the narrative to be interesting.
Hey, kid, excuse me, hi, hello, what are you doing up there? Me? Yes. Oh, I was just in line for Diamondback, and I heard something going on here and thought I'd come check it out. So you just like climbed up the back of the wall?
It's probably not the most responsible thing for the framing device of the show to be like, hey, it's cool if the kid who got lost and like climbed up onto the stage gets to just be part of the show. Like that's a little weird to me.
The 70s On Demand.
No text for this one either. Remember the 70s? Those sure happened.
You know, if you really, really wanted to listen to a live performance of Get Happy by the Partridge Family twice in one day, you can do that at Kings Island. I think this show in particular has really demonstrated, more so than the last one, although they both are guilty of this, how much like distaste I have for live performances that demand some amount of like audience participation beyond just like clapping. It's super off-putting when they ask everybody to stand up when there are seats. And I think it's even more off-putting when they're like, we're gonna bring some people on stage. They specifically like picked out a bunch of kids and like had them come up on stage to do the YMCA. A couple of the kids were just not doing it. And you could tell that the performers were like trying to encourage them to like do it and they didn't want to do it. I definitely almost called it that 70s show. The thing that I found funniest about it was that the screens kept showing like pictures of just like random shit from the 70s, just like toys and just pieces of like cultural iconography from the time, I guess is the best way to put it. They're like trying to establish like, yes, this is about the decade, the 70s, and they found like every single possible way that they could do that short of mentioning the Vietnam War. Another thing I found funny was that they did kung fu fighting at one point, and it was really like evident that they were trying to make the song as like not racially insensitive as possible, you know, so like the movements they were doing were very safe. Like they swapped out one of the verses with what I believe to have originated from like a CeeLo Green cover of the song, which is just full of like kind of nothing platitudes. This was the visit where I rode Orion 4 times and also had my first grilled cheese sandwich. Up until now, I had been eating Skyline chili every time, but I figured it'd be prudent to try some different food places too. Tom and Chi has a grilled cheese sandwich that's grilled, has cheese, and is a sandwich. 10 out of 10.
KI and Miami Valley Railroad.
Many people today have never been on a train, and still fewer people have been on a real steam train. That's why Kings Island's recreation of the railroad of the late 1800s appeals to guests of all ages. Although Kings Island's engines are fired by propane rather than coal, the 400-gallon boilers on each engine provide plenty of capacity to make them real, authentic steam-spitting locomotives.
So the KI Miami Railroad train takes you from the Rivertown part of the park to Soak City, which is on the other side of the park, and it's only otherwise connected by a very long walkway that spans the length of the track, and it got stranded at Soak City because it was busted, which, you know, the walk back isn't fun, but, you know, we deal with those. I also saw the other live show that I missed, Phantom Theater Encore.
Phantom Theater Encore.
Phantom Theater Encore is a musical with music by Andrew Lloyd Webber, lyrics by Charles Hart, additional lyrics by Richard Stilgoe, and a libretto by Lloyd Webber and Stilgoe. Based on the 1910 French novel of the same name by Gaston Leroux, it tells the tragic story of a beautiful soprano, Christine Daae, who becomes the obsession of a mysterious masked musical genius living in the subterranean labyrinth beneath the Paris Opera House.
So Phantom Theater Encore is definitely the best of the, shows with seats. It's not even a question. It's, the most visually impressive. It's the most sort of, immersive of the shows. It stands to be more than just, song covers. And the best part is, if you have any degree of social anxiety or any degree of anxiety about the performers asking the audience to participate in any capacity, this is the best show for that, because they don't do that, at all. They have cool effects going on, fun musical numbers, they have this, glow-in-the-dark tap dancing number, which you wouldn't think would work, but it kind of does work anyway. They've got, acrobats doing things. It's hardly a Vegas show, but it's, as close to a Vegas show as you're gonna get from a fucking theme park. Didn't really care for all the jokes about the guy with no legs. Didn't really care for all the, subtle ableism that was happening there. Wasn't a fan of the jokes about the union. So many jokes about the ushers unionizing, and it just, it wasn't funny. No matter how many times they repeated it, it was never funny. But they kept sticking with it. That was the bit. Anti-union humor. It's not good. It's not good. It's not funny. It may have been better than the other shows, but Viking Fury continues to be the pinnacle of entertainment across the entire entertainment industry, which includes film, literature, music, and performance. Retrospect is another show they did, which I didn't catch in full, but from what I can tell was just them playing some music while an MC hypes up the kids who are watching.
I need bigger dance moves. Full body, come on, y'all.
Looking further into it, Retrospect was a bigger spectacle with dancers and stuff.
Retrospect is a high-intensity song and dance spectacle.
But they kept all the branding on the stage for whatever this other thing was, so maybe my confusion was justified.
Alright, looks like that's the end of it. So,
I recognize that reviewing the live shows isn't especially useful when it comes to recommending them, because most of the live shows are swapped out every year. Like in 2024, Phantom Theater Encore is replaced by something else on the main stage, Off the Rails gets a new set of numbers and a new show name, and so on. But documenting my experience with the 2023 season felt important anyway, and some of these thoughts still apply to whatever parallel shows take their place later. Nothing super notable about this visit. This is the one where I did a lot of the rides from the front, which you've already seen me talk about. I had La Rosa's Pizza, where they give you pizza and a couple breadsticks. Very enjoyable if you are an enjoyer of pizza and a couple breadstick. This time I did something a little different, and I went to the park in the evening. I don't really get the hype behind doing night rides for some coasters, which is a thing some enthusiasts like to go for, but I still had a good time, and I got more of those front seat rides out of the way. I had a grilled chicken sandwich from Jukebox Diner, which was surprisingly really delicious. The fries were great too. I think they sell the same fries everywhere in the park, but I'm certainly not complaining. They were yummy. Lines were pretty light, and I got a ticket for Extreme Skyflyer.
Extreme Skyflyer.
Ever wonder what it's like to fly like a bird? At extreme speeds, Extreme Skyflyer gives you the experience of hang gliding, skydiving, and swinging, all in the same ride.
And earlier I was doing a bit about Viking Fury being this life-changing ride, but Extreme Skyflyer absolutely was mind-blowing in a very genuine way. I think I picked a very good time to do Extreme Skyflyer because the park is almost closed, it's very dark, very little attention is on me. It is thrilling. There is a reason that there's an upcharge for it. It is just so much more intense and gratifying and freeform than any of the rides. I have too many thoughts, I can't put them into words right now. Something else I did at night was take in the fireworks show. These happen just as the park closes to really make the day go out with a literal bang. I think the most remarkable thing to be said is that it's very self-indulgent, much like a lot of Kings Island is. They really pat themselves hard on the back for existing.
Kings Island is more than a theme park. It's home.
Today's meal was chicken tenders with fries and toast from Chicken Shack. The chicken had this tasty outside but bland inside, which didn't quite cancel out in a desirable way. The toast was awesome though. I had been squeezing in a ride on Boo Blasters on Boo Hill nearly every visit up to this point, and today I got a record low score of 750. They called me an amateur blaster by the end of it. Extreme Skyflyer does this thing where the ticket price changes throughout the day based on time and demand. I think $9 was as cheap as it got, so I went on it again. The main goal of this visit was to knock out the water rides. It's worth noting that Kings Island does also have a water park, which was included in my season pass, but I didn't want to go to by myself, and nobody I knew could be bothered to go with me, so Soak City is not part of the project. The water rides in the main park were fair game though, and these were less swimming and sliding oriented as they are ride oriented.
Congo Falls.
Water and water-related activities have always been popular attractions for guests visiting Kings Island. Congo Falls is no exception. The ride has been making a splash with park visitors for more than 30 years.
And Whitewater Canyon.
Cool off as you challenge this wet, rollicking, raging, rapid river adventure. There's room for the whole family to brave fast-moving currents and dodge soaring geysers as they experience the unforgettable fun of shooting the rapids. You will get wet on this ride. Very wet.
So I did a bit of a science experiment where I went on Congo Falls and Whitewater Canyon with the poncho just to see if it would do anything at all. It'll protect you fairly thoroughly on Congo Falls. On Whitewater, like, you're gonna get water all up in your shoes, you're gonna get it all over your pant legs if you're wearing pants. The poncho will get your torso and like maybe what's in your pockets okay, but honestly, like if you're gonna do Whitewater Canyon, you gotta accept that you will just get the full body wetting experience no matter what.
Race for your life, Charlie Brown.
Float through an excursion into the wilderness and race to the finish line. Take care, there just may be a waterfall around the bend. Real log flumes used flowing water to transport lumber down mountains to sawmills, and sometimes workers rode down the flume to inspect it, or just have fun.
There is a non-zero chance that you won't get wet at all on Race for Your Life, Charlie Brown. That is until, like, Snoopy spits at you at the end. My current theory is that Snoopy only spits at you if you're an amateur blaster. This time, I went to the park with my brother. He paid his own way, drove us both there, but I let him have one of my free meals. Since this was a weekend, we had to wait longer for rides, but having someone to talk to helped alleviate some of that stress. I convinced him to go on Extreme Skyflyer with me. My brother was very nervous about Extreme Skyflyer, but he trusted me when I said it was a good time. They put the both of us in the harness, and they tasked me with pulling the release cord. As we went up, his eyes were fixed on the ground, and he barely said a word. It was really sunny out, and my brother has, like, this long beard. We're, like, on our stomachs, right? Like, they put us, like, sideways, and we're, like, on our stomachs, like, facing down. So his beard sort of, like, also kind of goes with gravity as we're lying down, and sort of, like, sits at this, like, 90-degree angle relative to his face. And so it was really funny seeing that in the shadow. When we got to the top, he was laser-focused on the ground. When the operators gave us the countdown, I pulled on the cord, and he gave this, like, super terrified, "Oh, God!" as we started to free fall. But after that, it was so smooth and kind of calming, and he started laughing. It was awesome. I can't recommend it enough. We were originally going to stay for the Carnival parade, but we were so fatigued that we just skipped that altogether. For this visit, I wanted to see how many rides I could squeeze into a single visit. So I rode Viking Fury, Delirium, Drop Tower. Oh yeah.
Drop Tower.
What goes up must come down. And down and down and down at incredibly dizzying speeds on the Drop Tower, among our guests' favorite rides. You're completely emptied into a free fall of 26 stories, reaching frenetic speeds of up to 67 miles per hour before the brakes kick in, and did that really happen? You're at the bottom and back to normal. But know this, after riding the Drop Tower, you're never truly normal again.
I think rides like Drop Tower are some of the most dreaded. Like, even people who say they'll ride anything still kind of nope out at the idea of a huge drop. But they're some of my favorites. I like seeing the view of the park at the top and the feeling of, like, weightlessness when you're dropping. Kings Island's Drop Tower isn't anything special, but it does scratch the itch just fine. Anyway, back to the bunch of rides in a row from the beginning. Viking Fury, Delirium, Drop Tower, Extreme Skyflyer, which was another $9, The Bat, Banshee, Invertigo, Cargo Loco. I skipped Adventure Express because only one train was operating, and then I skipped Soul Spin because it sucks. The Racer, Scrambler, Shake, Rattle, and Roll. So today is Thursday, August 3rd, and This is the first time I've had to leave the park because I wasn't feeling well. I was having a great morning. Like, it was going really well. I had set out to try and, like, do as many rides as I could. So I had a plan for, like, which sequence of rides I wanted to do. And I did a lot of them. I did, like, at least 7. And I've been staying hydrated as well. It's sunnier than I thought it was going to be. The forecast said it was going to be mostly cloudy, but it's looking more like partly cloudy. And I was doing great. I was actually having, like, an awesome day. I was just, like, just big old smile on my face the whole time. I got on Shake, Rattle, and Roll, which is not even one of the more intense rides. And I had this moment where I kind of, like, panicked a little bit, just, like, internally, because I felt like I was going to pass out. And then as the ride went on, I realized, okay, I'm not actually about to pass out. I think I'm just, like, nauseous, like I might, like, throw up. And, you know, once we got off the ride, like, I stood next to a trash can for a minute or two and was just, like, you know, trying not to, but, like, making sure that, like, if I need to, I need to. I think it's probably a mixture of the heat and the sunshine. I had been staying on top of staying hydrated. That wasn't an issue. I was well hydrated. You know, I wear long sleeves when I go out here. It's not a particularly, like, hot long sleeve shirt. I think it might have just been because, like, I didn't eat a proper breakfast and I hadn't had lunch at that point. So I immediately, like, went and got a burger and I sat down in the shade for a little bit to see if that would, like, make me feel better, and it kind of didn't. I mean, like, it is good that I've eaten, but I felt exactly the same as I did. So I'm headed home. And, you know, since we're talking about Kings Island as, like, a holistic experience, or at least as close to holistic as I can get, this is a really low point. This is a really low feeling, is, like, needing to leave the park, because despite everything around you being, like, fun and inviting you to, like, have fun and have a good time, you just, like, physically can't. B came with me for this visit. It seemed like a good opportunity to visit Planet Snoopy and do some of the stuff I'd otherwise not really be comfortable doing by myself. Planet Snoopy is the kids area of the park, and while some attractions are designed for the whole family to ride together, some of them are only for kids, so obviously those won't be part of this project.
Woodstock Express.
Even though this coaster might be pint-sized just like our buddy Woodstock, it has all the heart, soul, and exhilarating speed of a soaring eagle, offering fantastic thrills for everyone in the family to enjoy together. Climb aboard and hold on tight, because one trip aboard this classic ride will turn all kiddos into roller coaster riders for life.
So we just did Woodstock Express, previously Beastie, previously Fairly Odd Coaster.
Not a fairy in sight.
Not a fairy in sight.
Not anymore.
Now that we're off of there.
It was a good time.
Good time.
It was adult approved.
It's like a really tiny coaster, but, like,
it still goes.
It's still pretty solid.
Yeah. It still goes. I can't swear because we're in a children's
That's
area.
Okay.
Flying Ace Aerial Chase.
Flying Ace Aerial Chase is an inverted steel roller coaster high-flying adventure designed specifically for kids and their parents and grandparents to enjoy together in seats that are suspended below the coaster track. Following a second 180-degree turn, the train heads back into the station where kids, their parents, and grandparents want to get right back on and ride it again.
Alright, so we just did Flying Ace Aerial Chase, which is the next logical step for, like, a second coaster of the day.
It was, like, really good.
It's not, like, super thrilling, and it's also very short. You know, this is the kids area of the park. That's to be expected. I think any of the suspended coasters are, like, really fun because you get to, like, see everything, like, below you.
Yeah, it was super good.
Mm-hmm.
That was, like, absolutely acceptable for an adult coaster, except maybe it's a little short.
Yeah, maybe.
But very fun.
Character Carousel.
The setting is a treat in itself. When you step onto the carousel's platform, you're engulfed in amazing artistry with hand-painted murals overhead and intricately crafted characters just waiting to be chosen for a ride. Fun idea for parents. Ask your children what type of energy they think makes the character carousel go around. Solar? Steam? Magnetic? Or is it some kind of unknown force? A force found only in the Twilight Zone.
So my personal award for the strangest name for a ride goes to the character carousel.
There's no characters.
There's no characters.
It's just horses and zebras.
They're not even, like, Peanuts themed. You're not even supposed to, like, think that they're from Peanuts. It just has Peanuts music play.
Yeah, they just play the one song.
And it's just a regular carousel.
It even says in the like voiceover intro thing, it's like, enjoy a ride with your favorite characters.
We did it by ourselves, by the way. Nobody else was in line.
And we were too big for the horses.
So they put us on the little like carriages.
But it was still a fun time. We did a little dance.
At this point, B was running out of steam, but they wanted to ride Orion with me, which at this point I had been touting as one of my favorite coasters in the park. The operator sat us on the coaster train, checked our seatbelts and lap bars, and then immediately kicked us all off the ride, because a rainstorm was on the way. It hadn't even begun to rain in the park, but they knew it was coming, so they were just like being cautious. It absolutely makes sense from a safety perspective, but that doesn't mean it's not a bummer, especially for me. It started absolutely pouring down rain on our way out. We got completely soaked on the way to the car. It's not like we had a bad time overall, but it was a pretty unfortunate way to end this visit. This is the final day, October 15th, 2023. It's weird being at the theme park in the fall. I'm here today with my brother again, and our friend Stephanie, and we're gonna have a good time. We're gonna see this project off with a bang, I think. We did the Sky Flyer all together. We rode some easygoing rides, took in the atmosphere of the Haunt, which is just Kings Island but Halloween, Snoopy but spoopy, if you will. Very obviously a candy cane, crudely rethemed for Halloween.
Enjoy yourselves while you can.
I was actually impressed by all the decorations and effects throughout the park, and the haunted house was cool too. There were actually 3 haunted houses with different themes. Hotel, aliens, and corn. We did the hotel themed one. I'm not big on haunted houses. I think they're kind of overrated even at their best, but I was not unhappy with Kings Island's execution of the concept. With Kings Island's execution of the concept of haunted house. Potato Works had these gluten-free chicken tenders, which were absolutely delicious, and I highly recommend if you're looking for something gluten-free to eat in the park. Since I wasn't sure if this would be my last visit or not, I got a little souvenir to commemorate the project, a small silver Eiffel Tower. It's just sort of like painted on metal. It's very, very cheap. It only has this little Kings Island logo thingy on one side, so you can turn it around and just display it like a normal Eiffel Tower. Here I am back in parking row 17. It's like I'm home again for Winterfest, which I hadn't really initially intended to include as part of the video. You know, I was editing the footage together, I was working on the last bits of the script, and I thought to myself, you know, I should really try to get this last piece, this last sort of thing that my pass is good for. So we're here for Winterfest. Not a lot of rides are open. I don't know what today's gonna bring. Maybe I'll be full of the holiday spirit. Who knows? We'll see. The tower lighting is the first big event of the day that happens about half an hour after the park opens on Winterfest, but it took a little detour to take a second ride on Soul Spin. I figured that on a rainy, cold winter morning, Soul Spin was just the right amount of ironic for me.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
A couple hours north of Mason, in Powell, Ohio, is the Columbus Zoo. The zoo does a Winter Lights event every year, and I always think to myself, wow, This is just a slightly worse version of the standard zoo experience, but with holiday theming and lights to distract from it. And it turns out at Kings Island, Winterfest is much the same way. Most roller coasters are not built for the cold, so really the theming is the appeal here. And to their credit, the theming is far from an afterthought. Much like the Haunt, they go all out. Even the restaurants are rethemed to things like Tinseltown Cafe and The Ghost of Restaurants Past, which got a great chuckle out of me. So one thing I did this week during the writing process was I found another couple of YouTube videos talking about Kings Island this year and talking about the roller coasters, and I found this one, and they said that Mystic Timbers was their favorite. And I guess a part of me was a little bothered by that, because I this entire time have been saying, oh yeah, Mystic Timbers is like mid. But they said specifically that it's really good for night rides, and since it's nighttime, I figured I would ride Mystic Timbers at night just to see what they were talking about, because it's one of the few rides that's like open. They had it split into single rider line and group rides. There was this twerp in line who just would not stop talking and was just constantly like, I can't believe people are abusing the single rider line. The park management needs to be better about this, and kept talking to, you know, the poor minimum wage worker running the ride, being like, you guys need to enforce it better because people are coming in this line with their groups. And it's like, it's just people who don't care if they sit together. That's literally all it is. But this kid thought he knew better. And when we got on the ride, he was like, this is the last time I'm riding this one because I don't think this one's very good anyway. Honestly, I think I like it a little bit better out of spite now, just to spite that kid. Winterfest felt like it was operated proportionally to its attendance, which is to say only like half of the things that you could normally do at Kings Island were available, but also it was about half the people. So lines for things were almost exactly as they normally are, with the drawback of also being cold. Winterfest was the closest thing to being in one of those Christmas-themed wonderlands that so many Christmas movies for kids take place in. But it's hard to recommend unless you're like really into Christmas. Winterfest is Kings Island's worst kept secret, which I mean in a couple of ways. I mean it in the way that if they're trying to keep it a secret, they're doing a shitty job of it, and also that if you consider it a secret at all, it is one of the most sort of like disappointing ones to find out about / go through with. Winterfest is just kind of a worse version of the Kings Island experience, but it's Christmas themed. So like, if you really, really love when things are Christmas themed, then there's something for you. Otherwise, there's just less here for you than a Kings Island visit, and it's also cold. I kind of wish I had seen this whole, like, Kings Island project off on better terms. Like, I kind of wish that, like, I could say something a little more, like, special and grandiose about my final visit, but it's just Winterfest. I didn't do anything special. I didn't spend any extra money, so it does bring our average down, which I suppose is good. You know, I'm glad to have experienced it. It's hard for me to like recommend anybody else do the same. And it would be difficult for me to try to get somebody to come along for Winterfest unless we like had a bunch of money and we're planning on doing a bunch of the like upcharge attractions, which there are a bunch of for Winterfest specifically. But I didn't have a bad time. I'm ready to go home. Let's talk about the financial breakdown of this whole thing. I spent $296.50 on passes, $49.49 on B's ticket since the pass is only good for one person. I'm not counting my brother or our other friend, nor their food or Skyflyer tickets because they paid their own way. Water bottles, sunblock, other quality of life investments totaled $28.79. Estimated total cost of gas was $180. I ate the blue ice cream 4 times, which comes to a total of $21.58. I got on the Extreme Skyflyer 5 times, with varying ticket prices totaling $58.50. My Eiffel Tower souvenir cost $13.49. All in all, I spent $648.35, which comes out to an average of $43.23 spent per visit. To put these numbers in perspective a little bit, a Kings Island admission ticket retailed for $60 in the year 2023, and that's without any food, considerations for gas, or other extras. It was kind of hard to find out what the definitive retail price of a single day ticket was. $60 was the highest I had seen it, but sometimes at checkout they would show you a crossed out $84.99, which I think is just there to trick you into thinking you're getting a great deal. So we're going with $60 just to keep things simple. The meals I got typically cost around $12 ordinarily. And if I had gone 15 times and bought my ticket every single time and bought my meal every single time, I would have spent $1,080. So by comparison, $650 is not too shabby. By this logic, the pass absolutely paid for itself. And that's a kind of success, but that's still nearly $650 that I spent on leisure and don't have anymore. Leisure I've managed to spin into this video on a platform that does not make me any money. I have once again found myself in tax debt, so it would be nice to have that money back. Ko-fi.com/Ellie-spectacular, by the way, but I can't turn back time. That money is gone. It's not exactly useful to imagine a reality where I did everything right and only spent money on project expedient expenses, but if you're curious about this fictional reality, with no treats, no monopod I didn't end up using, where B stays home and I only ride the Skyflyer once at the cheapest price, that comes to $499.24, or $33.29 per visit. I would still have spent $500, even if I did everything right. Obviously, gas is a big consideration, and if I had lived closer to the park, then we would be able to take another big chunk off of that. $180 is a scary number, but that's gas. But again, that's not the reality we're living in. We are living in the reality where $650 was the amount of money that got spent. There are harder to quantify costs at play too. My shoes wore out faster than they would have otherwise. I have lots of miles on my car that weren't there before. And of course, there's my time. I spent a total of 59.5 hours in the park across all visits. Breaking down, our total money comes to $10.89 an hour, more than minimum wage, in the year 2023. I also spent about 40 total hours driving to and from the park since I live in Central Ohio, and I will likely spend upwards of 60 hours producing this video. That is time that could instead be spent with loved ones, or working on videos that earn me money, or cleaning my home, or anything else. I really wanted the scope of this project to be much larger, where I dispel the myth of the season pass. I set out with the hypothesis that season passes are predatory, and that they are only viable if you spend an unreasonable amount of time taking advantage of them, an amount of time that a reasonable person would not spend. There was going to be a ton of research, and it was going to be an entire ordeal, but I had sat on this footage and script for so long that I decided to just reflect on what I actually did instead. And my anecdotal experience doesn't really come to any strong conclusions, seeing as how I managed to save a good deal of money at the end, but that's only when compared to the retail price. I didn't really save any money. I just spent some money. Consider, I spent $650 to go to Kings Island and eat there 15 times, as opposed to spending $10.80 that we talked about before? No, I would never have done that. In no reality would I have done that. I spent $650 to visit Kings Island 15 times, as opposed to going to Kings Island 0 times for free. That is an in-character choice I would have absolutely made. Maybe it's worth considering that if the base price of something that you don't need is a ripoff that you would turn down under ordinary circumstances, the appearance of a more cost-effective option like a discount or a season pass may not merit being instantly celebrated as some kind of relief. This video is not nearly thoroughly researched enough to make that conclusion with any degree of authority beyond my own experience, but the money is only part of the story. When I started this project, I had gone to Kings Island a couple of times many years ago, and I wanted to experience most of what the park had to offer. My curiosity and desire to have all the fun I can have at Kings Island has been beyond satisfied. That is mostly a good thing, but it comes with a very big trade-off of I no longer find the prospect of returning to Kings Island to be fun or desirable. Like, the one thing I would be excited to do again would be the Extreme Skyflyer, and that is an upcharge attraction. As for everything else, I'd be okay if it turned out that I have experienced them for the last time. That isn't to say I'd be unwilling to go back, but just that I wouldn't be excited to go back. I hate to say it, but I've turned into one of those people who prefers Cedar Point. For now, anyway. Maybe if I go there 15 times, I might change my tune. I've had to ask myself if I regret having taken on this project, and that is hard to answer for sure. Certainly there were some purchases that present-day Ellie is mad at past Ellie for making, but this experience has been like no other. Hell, it warranted this video documenting the project and dozens of conversations with my friends and family about it. There were some really high highs as well as some really low lows. In many ways, I got to satisfy something that my childhood self wanted but could never have. But in doing so, some of the magic is gone too. Kings Island is no longer a mystical place of pure fun, it's an investment in leisure that requires a lot of planning and budgeting in order to be remotely worthwhile. Thank God I didn't try to do this with a Disney park. Think about how much worse that would have been. In general, I don't think I regret having gone to Kings Island 15 times in 1 year, but I wouldn't do it again. Nor will I in the future with any other park or zoo or whatever. Unless I get real rich real quick, because my body is aging and I won't always be able to do stuff like this. Which brings me to... It really goes without saying that I had to have some degree of privilege to even take on this project in the first place. I have the privilege of a car. I have the privilege of living in a somewhat reasonable proximity to the park. I have the privilege of appearing normal enough that people don't bother me much in public. Hell, I have the privilege of a platform where some kind folks on Twitch were willing to crowdfund the initial cost of the season passes. Technically, all of my online work is crowdfunded, but my viewers went the extra mile for this one, so thank you guys again. But I think most critically, I have the privilege of an able body. I'm kind of thin, I can see, I can hear, I have full control of my arms and legs, I don't have airborne allergies, I don't have paralyzing anxiety about thrill rides, I don't get nauseous easily, my body can get thrown around quite a bit without being damaged. Please be normal about that one, and probably even more that I haven't considered. If any of those things weren't true, my ability to enjoy myself at a theme park would be intensely compromised. A lot of the entertainment comes from getting on machines meant to scare you and throw you around a bunch. A lot of people become unable to handle theme parks after a certain age. The ride seats will not support people above a certain size or weight. Many safety measures rely on guests being able to read signs and listen to directions. I can't say for certain what the wheelchair accessibility situation is like. There are laws in place that may require Kings Island to do a lot of accommodation work that I don't see, but I don't think it's unfair to assume that the experience is not nearly as smooth for people using wheelchairs as it is for walking people. I don't like to dwell on hypotheticals. I have the privileges that I do, and this is the reality of things. It isn't useful to theorize about a version of myself that had a harder time, but I do spare a thought for the people who would love to go to an amusement park and just kinda can't. Remember earlier when I shared that visit where I got sick and I had to go home? For a brief moment, I got a glimpse into what it must be like. To have the promise of joy right there, just beyond your reach, knowing that despite everyone and everything around you inviting you to have this specific kind of fun, you simply can't, because your body said no. I got to go back later and have fun, but not everyone can. Another element of the original, more research-focused plan for this video was to discuss the ethics of theme parks and their existence. Whether in a system of such massive inequity it's good or right to be investing money in so much steel and power just for thrills. How many homes could be built, people fed, debts forgiven if the resources that we put into amusement parks were reallocated? That is an argument you can make for a lot of different things, like the film industry and online gaming. And amusement parks do employ regular people who depend on that income to survive, so it's not like there isn't any good that comes from it. And hell, leisure itself isn't a waste even in an unequal society. These thoughts are half-baked, and maybe I shouldn't have included them. Maybe I just wanted to prove that I wasn't going into this project mindlessly, or that I didn't intend to grift my audience into sending me on an extended theme park vacation. It is good and healthy for different people to have different perspectives on amusement parks. For some, it's a magical fun place to go. For others, it's a business model with risks and investments. For others, it's an intricate web of moving parts and complex logistics. For others, it's a bid for the honor of the best or biggest or fastest ride out there. For some, it's a multiple times a year vacation. For others, it's a once in a lifetime treat that they have to bust their ass to earn. For me, it's this experience that once upon a time in the year 2023, I got to do 15 times. For others, they will never get to go. It is remarkable how most things that market themselves as being for everyone aren't actually for everyone. But for a moment there, I got to be one of the people it was for. I am so grateful for that. And if I get the chance to go a dozen plus times to Cedar Point or Disney World or a zoo or a water park or King's Dominion, the eerily similar sister park in Virginia, or any other landmass of fun, all for a fixed price at the start of the season, I think I will pass. If you want to go to Kings Island and make the most of your trip, and you find the advice of someone who's been 15 times in a row valuable, here's what I recommend. If you're going for just one day, go by your damn self. You're paying top dollar, so you might as well take in everything you can at your own pace. If you're going the season pass route, consider having a park buddy that also gets a pass. Make some memories together. Get your passes early in the year and plan to go to the park a lot. If you live more than 30 minutes away like I do, really consider the potential hundreds of extra dollars you might spend on gas and the strain it will put on your vehicle. I could really only recommend the milking a season pass approach if you live much closer to the park than I did. Wear clothes with pockets, and try to consolidate everything you need into those pockets so you don't have to buy a locker. To that end, don't bring a water bottle. Instead, take note of where the drinking fountains are, or get a drink pass. If you are getting a drink pass, get one of the ones where they give you a paper cup each time, otherwise you'll have to lug around a souvenir bottle which can't ride with you on coasters. There are metal detectors at the front of the park that I managed to get through with my phone, keys, and monopod without setting it off, but to be safe, try not to bring too many metal things. Wear comfortable shoes, because unless you are in a wheelchair, you will potentially be walking a lot. If you get fatigued easily from walking, plan to incorporate some of the live shows into your day so you can rest periodically without having to stop the fun. A meal pass will serve you well alongside a season pass, especially if you plan on long visits. But if money's really tight, pack some food in a cooler to keep in your car and go eat in the parking lot halfway through the day. Go to the park on Fridays or on weekdays when available. It'll make an absolute world of difference with regards to crowding and wait times. Don't bother getting a fast lane pass unless you can only go on the weekends. Personally, the fast lane passes are so far out of my budget that I'd never consider it, but I've also never used them, so take this recommendation with a grain of salt. Days with forecasted rain are a gamble, so treat them accordingly. If you go when it's sunny, you're practically guaranteed nothing will close for the weather, except for the tower attractions, which sometimes close due to high winds, but it will be hot, and the crowds will be larger. If you go during heavy cloud cover or forecasted rain, you might have the best day ever, with shorter lines and cooler weather, or it might rain down, causing everything to close except for boo blasters. Know the risks, and always wear sunblock, even if it's cloudy. If you're worried about germs, consider bringing a travel-sized hand sanitizer to use before and after you get on rides, since a lot of people will be touching the restraints and seatbelts. My biggest recommendation is to try the Extreme Skyflyer at least once. Keep an eye out for when the tickets sell for $10, because that's the cheapest they get.
Well, if you're going to
Kings Island,
enjoy your stay. If you're not, well, I also enjoyed talking to you. Goodbye.